Before sunrise, a Sufi was digging an empty grave. Someone asked, "Who died?" He replied, "The person I became, just to be accepted by the world." Maybe your pain is not destroying you. Maybe Allah is burying the false self that cannot enter your next life. What part of you is quietly dying so your true soul can finally rise? Lesson 1. When the road back disappears. The first sign is that your old life no longer feels like home. The same places feel empty. The same people may still be around you, but their words no longer reach your heart. The same dreams you once chased now feel small. You try to become your old self again. You try to enjoy what once made you happy. You try to fit into the same life, but something inside you keeps saying, "You cannot stay here anymore." This can feel painful. You may think you are lost. You may think something is wrong with you, but sometimes you are not lost. Sometimes Allah is making the road behind you disappear because He knows you will keep returning to what is familiar, even when it is no longer good for your soul. The closed door is not always rejection. The distance is not always punishment. The emptiness is not always failure. Sometimes it is Allah showing you that one chapter has ended. You cannot enter a new life while still holding tightly to the old one. So do not be afraid when your past no longer feels comfortable. It may be a sign that your soul has grown. The road back disappears when Allah wants you to stop looking behind you, not because He wants to leave you alone, but because something better is waiting ahead. Lesson 2. When every refuge dies, then the things you trusted begin to fail. The person you depended on becomes distant. A door you were sure would open suddenly closes. A plan you built your whole hope around falls apart. Even the places that once made you feel safe may stop giving you peace. At first it feels cruel. You may ask, "Why is everything leaving me at the same time?" But sometimes Allah allows every weak refuge to fall so your heart can discover the one refuge that never falls. People can change. Money can disappear. Plans can break. Even your own strength can become weak. But Allah does not leave. This lesson is painful because the heart loves to hold what it can see. It holds people. It holds promises. It holds control. And when these things are removed, fear enters. But behind that fear, something deeper is being taught. You were never meant to build your whole peace on something temporary. Allah is not always taking support away from you. Sometimes He is removing the illusion that those things were your true support. When every refuge dies, the heart finally learns where safety has always been. Lesson 3. When the crowd loses you, then something strange begins to happen. You can sit among many people and still feel alone. They may laugh, talk, and enjoy the same things as before, but your heart no longer joins them. The crowd still sees your face, but it can no longer reach your soul. You begin to notice how much noise once controlled you. You cared about being accepted. You feared being left out. You changed yourself so others would stay comfortable around you. But now, something inside you is becoming quiet and strong. You no longer want to explain every change. You no longer want to beg people to understand you. You begin to see that not everyone can walk with you into your next life. Some people only knew the old version of you. When that version begins to disappear, they may say you have changed, and they are right. You have changed. You are learning to live without applause. You are learning to stand without a crowd. You are learning that being misunderstood is not the same as being wrong. Sometimes the crowd does not leave you. Sometimes your soul simply grows beyond the place where the crowd can follow. And when the crowd loses you, Allah may be teaching you how to finally find yourself. Lesson 4. The death before the rise. Before a new life begins, something inside you must end. Not your body, not your future, but the old version of you, the version that needed everyone to understand you, the version that became happy only when people praised you, the version that felt strong only when someone noticed your effort. This part of you does not die in one day. It dies slowly. It dies every time you choose silence instead of proving yourself. It dies every time you stop chasing someone who has chosen to leave. It dies every time you obey Allah, even when no one sees you. At first, This inner death feels like loss. You may feel empty. You may not know who you are anymore. The things that once gave you confidence no longer work. The people who once made you feel important may no longer be near you. Even your old dreams may begin to lose their power. This stage can feel frightening because the old you is disappearing, but the new you has not fully appeared yet. You are standing between two lives. One life has ended, the other has not opened. This is the place where many people panic. They run back to old habits. They return to old people. They beg for the same attention that once kept them weak. They do this because emptiness feels harder than change. But the empty space is not useless. Allah may be clearing the heart. A full heart cannot receive something new. A heart full of pride cannot hold deep wisdom. A heart full of the need for praise cannot carry hidden strength. So the false self must become smaller. The ego must lose its throne. The need to be seen must lose its voice. You may think you are losing yourself, but perhaps you are only losing the mask you wore for too long. The real you was always deeper. The real you does not need to perform for love. The real you does not need to compete for value. The real you does not need the crowd to say, "You matter." Allah already knows your worth. This is why the death before the rise is so painful. You are not only leaving a life, you are leaving an identity. You are leaving the person you became to survive, the person who smiled while hurting, the person who stayed where the soul was dying, the person who accepted little because they feared having nothing. That person helped you survive. But that person cannot take you where Allah is leading you. So do not fear this death. Do not fear the silence. Do not fear the emptiness between who you were and who you are becoming. The seed must break before the tree can rise. The night must become darkest before morning appears. And sometimes, before Allah raises a servant, He first removes everything false that the servant was standing on. The rise does not begin when people finally notice you. The rise begins when the old you no longer controls you. Lesson 5. The test that ends false seekers. There comes a point on the path where feelings disappear. The excitement becomes quiet. The signs become fewer. The heart no longer feels strong every day. This is where the real test begins. Many people seek Allah only while the journey feels beautiful. They love the tears. They love the peace. They love the feeling of being different. They love the idea that they are becoming special. But when the road becomes dry, they begin to turn back. They wanted comfort. They did not want change. They wanted light. They did not want the darkness that teaches the heart how to trust. The false seeker asks, "What am I getting from this?" The sincere seeker asks, "What is Allah removing from me?" That is the difference. Sometimes you will pray and feel nothing. You will try to do good, but no one will notice. You will stay patient, yet the problem will remain. You will leave what is wrong, but the new door will not open quickly. This can make the heart tired. You may wonder, why am I still here? But this is the place where hidden truth appears. Do you obey only when obedience feels good? Do you trust only when the answer is clear? Do you continue only when people praise you? Or can you keep walking when there is no applause, no sign, and no reward you can see? The false seeker wants to be known as pure. The sincere seeker wants to become pure, even if no one knows their name. The false seeker wants spiritual rank. The sincere seeker fears pride more than being forgotten. The false seeker speaks about surrender. The sincere seeker surrenders when life does not follow their plan. This test is not meant to destroy you. It is meant to destroy what is false inside you. It reveals the hidden need to feel important. It reveals the secret desire to be admired. It reveals whether you love Allah or only love the peace you feel when life is easy. Many people stop here. They return to old distractions. They return to people who weaken them. They return to the same habits they once begged Allah to remove. They do not turn back because the truth was wrong. They turn back because the truth asked for too much of their ego. But the sincere seeker keeps moving, slowly, quietly, sometimes with tears, sometimes with questions, sometimes with a heart that feels completely empty. They do not continue because they understand everything. They continue because they know the old life can no longer save them. This is the test that ends false seekers. It removes those who wanted the feeling without the sacrifice. It removes those who wanted the title without the breaking. It removes those who wanted Allah only as long as nothing precious was taken from them. And when this test is over, something powerful remains, a servant who no longer needs to be seen, a heart that obeys even in silence, a soul that does not run when the road becomes hard. That is when seeking becomes real. Lesson 6. When your deepest wound opens the far gate of Lilaya, your deepest wound may not be the place where your life ended. It may be the place where your soul finally began to wake up. At first, pain only feels like pain. A betrayal feels like betrayal. A loss feels like loss. A delay feels like silence. A closed door feels like rejection. You do not see any wisdom inside it. You only feel the weight. You ask, why did this happen to me? You ask, why did Allah allow this? You ask, why did the wound have to go so deep? Sometimes the answer does not come quickly. Sometimes you carry the pain for months. Sometimes for years. You smile in front of people, but inside, something still hurts. You continue with life, but the wound follows you into quiet rooms. It returns when the night becomes silent. It returns when a memory suddenly opens. It returns when you see something that reminds you of what you lost. But some wounds enter places that comfort can never reach. Comfort can make you relaxed. Pain makes you look inside. Comfort can help you forget. Pain forces you to ask what truly matters. Before the wound, you may have trusted people too much. You may have placed your peace in their hands. You may have believed that as long as they stayed, you would be safe. Then they changed. They became distant. They broke a promise. They left when you needed them most, and the part of you that depended on them broke. At first, this feels like destruction. You think your heart is ruined. You think your future is gone. You think you will never feel whole again. But sometimes what breaks is not your soul. Sometimes what breaks is the false support under your soul. The wound shows you what had too much power over your heart. It shows you who you feared losing more than you feared losing yourself. It shows you how much your peace depended on something temporary. It shows you where your heart had placed hope in the wrong place. This is why deep pain can become a door. Not because every pain is good. Not because suffering alone makes someone chosen. Not because every broken person becomes close to Allah. Pain can make one heart softer, but it can make another heart bitter. Pain can make one person merciful, but it can make another person cruel. The wound is not the final answer. What you become through the wound is what matters. One person is betrayed and decides never to trust anyone again. Another person is betrayed and learns how carefully trust should be protected. One person is abandoned and begins abandoning others. Another person is abandoned and becomes the person who never leaves someone alone in pain. One person suffers and says, "The world owes me." Another suffers and says, "Now I understand those who suffer silently." The same fire can burn one heart and clean another. The difference is surrender. The difference is what you allow Allah to remove from you. Perhaps you were ignored for years. Now you notice the person no one sees. Perhaps you were left in your hardest moment. Now you understand the pain of those who have no one. Perhaps your trust was broken. Now you know that hearts are not toys. Perhaps you begged for something and still lost it. Now you understand that nothing in this world was ever fully yours. Perhaps you were humiliated. Now you are careful not to humiliate others. Perhaps you were judged unfairly. Now you no longer judge someone from one mistake. This is how your wound begins to open a gate. Your pain becomes understanding. Your tears become mercy. Your loneliness becomes awareness. Your loss becomes a lesson no book could have taught you. Before the wound, you may have spoken about patience. After the wound, you learn what patience costs. Before the wound, you may have spoken about trust. After the wound, you learn what trust means when nothing makes sense. Before the wound, you may have believed that strong people never break. After the wound, you learn something deeper. Strong people break too, but they refuse to become cruel because they were hurt. They refuse to spread the same pain that entered them. They refuse to make others bleed because they once bled. That is a rare kind of strength. The wound also reveals the ego. It shows how much you wanted control. It shows how badly you wanted life to follow your plan. It shows how much your peace depended on receiving the answer you wanted. It shows whether your trust was connected to Allah or only connected to good results. When the answer does not come, the heart faces a serious question. Will you still trust Allah when life does not explain itself? Will you still pray when the door remains closed? Will you still stay gentle when someone treated you harshly? Will you still believe there is wisdom when all you can see is loss? This is where many hearts become trapped. They feed the wound every day. They repeat the betrayal again and again. They imagine the conversation one more time. They remember every painful word. They build a home inside the memory. Soon, they no longer say, "I was hurt." They begin to believe, "I am nothing but this hurt." But your wound is not your name. Your pain is not your full identity. What happened to you is part of your story. It is not the whole story. Your suffering may explain your fear, but it must not control your future. Your wound may explain why you became guarded, but it must not become an excuse to close your heart forever. The gate begins to open when you stop asking only, "Why did this happen to me?" and begin asking, "What must this remove from me?" Maybe it must remove your need for approval. Maybe it must remove your fear of being alone. Maybe it must remove pride. Maybe it must remove your habit of chasing people who keep rejecting you. Maybe it must remove your need to control every ending. Maybe it must teach you that being left by people does not mean being left by Allah. This does not mean pretending the pain was small. It does not mean acting as if betrayal did not matter. It does not mean allowing people to keep hurting you. Forgiveness does not mean returning to the same danger. Patience does not mean accepting abuse. A soft heart does not mean having no boundaries. Sometimes healing means walking away. Sometimes trust in Allah means no longer knocking on the door He has already closed. Sometimes mercy toward yourself means ending the cycle. You can forgive someone and still keep distance. You can release anger and still remember the lesson. You can wish someone well without inviting them back into the same place. The heart becomes wise when it learns the difference between mercy and weakness. The deepest wound often creates the deepest surrender. You stop trying to control every outcome. You stop begging people to give you the value Allah already gave you. You stop chasing those who only love you when you are useful. You stop forcing doors that bring no peace. You stop asking the world to heal what only Allah can heal. Slowly, the wound changes. It may still hurt, but it no longer rules you. It may still be part of your memory, but it is no longer your prison. It becomes a window. Through it, you see yourself more clearly. You see people more gently. You see the world as temporary, and you see Allah as the only refuge that never changes. This is when pain becomes more than pain. It becomes a path. It becomes purification. It becomes the hidden place where pride dies and sincerity begins. Your wound does not open the gate because it made you suffer. It opens the gate because you allowed Allah to teach you through it. You did not become cold. You became clear. You did not become hard. You became wise. You did not lose your ability to love. You learned that love must never replace Allah in the heart. You did not lose your heart. You finally learned where it belongs. And perhaps that is why the wound was so deep. It had to reach the place where your greatest attachment was hiding. It had to reach the place where your greatest fear was living. It had to reach the place no advice could touch. So when that place finally opened, the light could enter, and the servant who once asked, "Why was I wounded?" may one day whisper, "Now I understand what the wound came to remove." Lesson 7. The level where ordinary life can never claim you. There comes a level where something inside you becomes quiet, not empty, not weak, quiet. You still live in the same world. You still wake up, work, speak, eat, rest, and face problems. People still misunderstand you. Doors still close. Plans still change. Loss still hurts. but the world no longer has the same power over your heart. This is the level where ordinary life can never claim you again. Before this level, your peace depended on what happened around you. If people praised you, you felt strong. If they ignored you, you felt small. If the door opened, you believed Allah loved you. If the door closed, you felt forgotten. If someone stayed, you felt safe. If they left, you felt broken. Your heart moved with every change. One day high, the next day low. One kind word gave you hope. One painful word destroyed your peace. But after everything you have walked through, something changes. You begin to understand that a life built only on people, results, praise, and comfort can never give deep peace. It can give excitement. It can give temporary happiness. But it cannot give the peace that remains when everything changes. This level does not begin when all your problems disappear. It begins when your problems stop deciding who you are. The world may still reject you, but rejection no longer proves that you are worthless. People may still leave, but their leaving no longer convinces you that you are impossible to love. Your plans may still fail, but failure no longer makes you believe your whole life is over. You feel the pain, but the pain does not become your master. You cry, but the tears do not erase your faith. You become tired, but tiredness does not make you return to the person you worked so hard to leave behind. This is not coldness, it is freedom. You are no longer controlled by every feeling. You are no longer pulled in every direction by every voice. You are no longer ready to destroy your peace just to keep someone close. You are no longer willing to betray your soul just to be accepted by the crowd. Something deeper now holds you. You begin to see the world clearly. You see that praise is sweet, but short. You see that beauty changes. You see that money comes and goes. You see that people make promises they may not keep. You see that every place you love will one day be left behind. You do not learn this to become sad. You learn it so your heart stops asking temporary things to act like they are permanent. This is where your relationship with Allah becomes different. Before, you may have turned to Allah only when life became painful. Now you remember Him, even when life feels easy. Before, you may have prayed only because you wanted something. Now you begin to love the act of returning. Before, you wanted Allah to change your situation. Now you begin asking Him to change your heart inside the situation. Before, you wanted the problem removed. Now you also want the lesson understood. Before, you asked, when will my life become easier? Now you ask, how can I remain true even if the road stays hard? This is a higher question. It shows that the heart is no longer searching only for comfort. It is searching for truth. Ordinary life teaches you to collect more attention, more praise, more control, more proof that you matter. But this level teaches you to release. Release the need to explain yourself to everyone. Release the need to win every argument. Release the need to be remembered by people who never understood you. Release the need to force what Allah keeps removing. Release the old dream of being loved by everyone. You stop trying to control what others think. You stop watching every face. You stop measuring your worth through their reactions. You begin to live from a quieter place, a place where Allah knows your intention, even when people misunderstand your action, a place where Allah sees your effort, even when no one thanks you, a place where Allah knows your tears, even when you smile in front of the world. At this level, you no longer need every good deed to be seen. You no longer need every sacrifice to be announced. You no longer feel angry when someone else receives the praise. The heart begins to enjoy being hidden, not because you hate people, not because you believe you are better than them, but because you have discovered the peace of doing something only for Allah. This is a very different kind of strength. The ordinary self wants to be admired. The awakened heart wants to be sincere. The ordinary self wants people to say, "Look how good you are." The awakened heart fears that praise may enter too deeply. The ordinary self wants to become important. The awakened heart wants to become useful. You stop asking, "How do I look?" You begin asking, "What am I becoming?" You stop asking, "Did they notice?" You begin asking, "Was Allah pleased with my intention?" You stop asking, why did they forget me? You begin asking, why do I still need to be remembered by them? These questions free the heart. You also become harder to control, not because you become proud, but because the things people once used against you no longer work. They cannot control you with silence because you have learned how to sit alone. They cannot control you with rejection because you no longer beg for every door. They cannot control you with praise because you know praise can change overnight. They cannot control you with fear because you have already survived the things you thought would destroy you. They cannot easily pull you back because the old version of you is no longer waiting at the same place. That old version wanted to be chosen by people. The new version wants to be accepted by Allah. That old version feared losing the crowd. The new version fears losing sincerity. That old version kept returning to pain because pain felt familiar. The new version understands that familiar does not always mean safe. This is why ordinary life can never fully claim you again. You have seen too much. You have lost too much. You have learned too much. You cannot fully return to blindness after your eyes have opened. You may still make mistakes. You may still feel weak. You may still become distracted. You may still have days when fear returns. But deep inside, you know the truth now. You know that no person can complete you. You know that no achievement can protect you from every sadness. You know that no amount of praise can heal a heart that has forgotten Allah. You know that the world can fill your hands while leaving your soul empty. So even when you fall, you know where to return. That is one of the greatest signs of change. Before, when you fell, you ran farther away. Now, when you fall, your heart looks for Allah. Before, guilt made you hide. Now, guilt makes you return. Before, weakness made you feel hopeless. Now, weakness reminds you that you were never meant to depend only on yourself. This level is not perfection. It is direction. You may not always walk strongly, but your heart knows where home is. And once the heart knows its true home, ordinary life can no longer fully own it. You still enjoy good things. You still love people. You still hope for success. You still make plans. You still ask Allah for ease. But now you hold these things differently. You hold them with open hands. You enjoy them without worshipping them. You love them without placing them above Allah. You receive them with gratitude. And when they leave, you grieve without losing yourself. That is the balance of the awakened servant. The servant is not dead to life. The servant is no longer enslaved by life. There is a difference. You can love someone deeply without making them your God. You can desire success without making it your identity. You can own things without allowing those things to own your heart. You can walk through the world without letting the world enter every hidden room inside you. This is the freedom many people never understand. They think freedom means getting everything you want. But real freedom may be reaching a place where you are no longer destroyed when you do not get it. Real freedom is not having every door open. It is knowing that a closed door cannot close Allah's mercy. Real freedom is not being praised by everyone. It is no longer needing praise to remember your worth. Real freedom is not avoiding pain. It is refusing to let pain turn you into someone you do not want to become. At this level, silence feels different. In the past, silence made you feel forgotten. Now silence can feel like protection. In the past, loneliness felt like rejection. Now loneliness can become a place of truth. In the past, delay made you panic. Now delay can teach you patience. In the past, loss made you believe everything was ending. Now loss can remind you that every ending belongs to Allah. You begin to understand why the road back disappeared. You understand why every refuge had to die. You understand why the crowd could no longer reach you. You understand why the old self had to break. You understand why the false seeker inside you had to be exposed. You understand why the wound went so deep. Every lesson was leading here. The road back disappeared because you were not meant to live in the past. Every refuge died because your heart needed a refuge that could not die. The crowd lost you because your soul needed to hear its own truth. The old self died because it could not carry the new life. The test removed what was false. The wound opened what was hidden. And now, The world can no longer speak to you in the same voice. It can offer you praise, but you know praise is not your name. It can threaten you with rejection, but you know rejection is not your end. It can show you wealth, beauty, and power, but you know none of them can remain forever. You do not hate the world, you simply stop bowing to it. That is the level. You walk among people, but your heart is no longer owned by their opinions. You build, work, love, and serve, but your deepest hope is no longer trapped inside results. You live fully, but you remember that this life is passing. You care, but you do not cling. You love, but you do not worship. You lose, but you do not disappear. You fall, but you return. And one day, you look back at everything that broke you. The closed doors, the lost people, the long silence, the hidden tears, the nights when you thought Allah had forgotten you, and you finally understand Allah was not ending your life. He was ending the life that had too much power over you. He was not making you empty. He was making space. He was not taking your identity. He was removing the false names the world had given you. He was not pushing you away. He was drawing your heart out of every place that could never hold it forever. That is where ordinary life ends. Not when you leave the world, but when the world loses the power to define you. And that is where the chosen life begins. Not when people call you special, not when your name becomes known, not when every prayer is answered in the way you expected. The chosen life begins when Allah becomes enough for the place inside you that once begged the whole world to be enough. After that, you may still live an ordinary life in the eyes of people, but inside, everything has changed. You are no longer walking only toward what you want. You are walking toward who you were created to become. And once the heart reaches that level, ordinary life can never claim it again. O Allah, remove every false attachment from my heart. Give me strength when the road back disappears. Keep me close when every refuge fails. Heal the wound that changed me. Remove pride, fear, and the need for people's approval. Lead me toward the life you have chosen for me, and never let this world claim the place in my heart that belongs only to you. Ameen.